I don't know what to tell you. I was born with the ability to solve geopolitical issues, even though I'm not able to solve any of the problems in my own life. You told me you're supposed to pay taxes every couple years? Every year? Solve the Middle East, Ukraine, Russia, inflation, unemployment, all without being able to keep a job myself. Or a relationship, or keep a pet without having it die. Okay, could you just not cut off my card today though? Solving geopolitics is actually easy. What's hard is getting to my coffee shop gig on time, and now my boss won't give me any shifts. I've never eaten a vegetable. But more importantly, I don't really have time to deal with all that mumbo jumbo right now because I'm focused on bigger problems like what to do with the world economy. I mean, the whole Palestine-Israel thing took me about half hour to solve Thursday morning, which is good that it didn't take long because I had a pretty hectic day. Just wrote a post solving homelessness. I personally, as you know, have been living with my mom in my 30s, so I technically have solved homelessness for myself. Last week I drafted a post outlining how to solve the whole mental health epidemic, but unfortunately I had a bit of an episode and then trashed my modem, so I haven't been able to post it. I do fly off the handle quite a
Everyone I've ever spoke to about the Israel-Palestine conflict. Not everybody. Welcome, welcome. Good morning. Rise and freedom. Welcome to the Wake Up America Show. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. Nice to see you guys. Welcome, welcome. Glad to have you here. How many friends of freedom have we got hanging out here? Quest Fanning, Andy Opperman, Bruce Burtwhistle, Brad Beckman, Richard Bell, Cecilia H., Jose MMA. Nice to see everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. T-Mill22, it's our freedom family. Good morning, good morning. Hi, Southcott. Barney Styles. Welcome to the Wake Up America Show. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. Click the like button if you like me. Click the follow button if today's your first time watching the show and you end up enjoying the content. We hope that you will come back and join us every Monday through Friday from 7 to 9 Central Time. You can send us a text at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. We're going to have some great guests today. It's a very royal, thirsty Thursday. We're going to hear from the king of the beach today, the king libertarian. That's right. The king of all libertarians will be joining us today. At 7:30 a.m. Central Time today. He hit the beach and he asked his fellow Americans some very important questions about the future of our country and their thoughts. So a little man on the street, king on the street, or king on the beach. He's going to join us this morning at 7:30 a.m. Central Time. And then at 8 a.m. Central Time, we're going to have Camelia Peterson. Did you guys see this viral video of Nancy Mace, where Nancy is accusing this man of harassing her? This is a now viral video of her heated store conversation with a man who was reportedly her constituent, and she called him names and told him to frig off. Matt Walsh over at the Daily Wire had an interesting take on that. He says that Nancy Mace says that she felt threatened, harassed, and in danger because a man asked her in question. He says, why are conservatives putting up with this ultra-feminist bullshit from a Republican politician? Even AOC has never gone this far. Barney Styles says, you can make me rise, but I refuse to freedom this early. I get it, guys. I'm just glad to be here hanging out with you guys on a Thursday morning. It's beautiful out here in mid-Missouri. I don't know, what's it like where you guys are? I think we're going to get some rain, though. Dang it. Womp womp. It's gonna rain here for the next couple of days, at least in mid-Missouri. We are streaming live from Jefferson City, Missouri, God's country, after all. So I hope that you guys are enjoying yourself. And the weather on the beach was nice when the King of Libertarians went out there. We're gonna watch a sneak preview of some of their videos, and then you'll be able to watch the full show and the full episode tonight at 9 p.m. Central Time. Daniela Pensack will be here today as well, making it a very complete Royal Thirsty Thursday. And Daniela Pensack has a different take than I do on the Jordan Peterson woke right Joe Rogan interview, so we're going to get her on. We're going to talk about that. And I think the King Libertarian and I were sparring a little bit about the food Nazis yesterday, who all think they're all smart enough, they're all intelligent enough to figure out scientifically that their food is poison, but somehow they haven't figured out how to not buy it. Oh. I guess he is earning his crown as the king of all of us, telling us all what to do. So, yes, so the food Nazis are on the march. They have brainworms, and they're going to tell us all how to stay healthy. Isn't that ironic? Thanks for the gifted sub, Steelbringer. You're helping to unlock that sweet, sweet bonus content. It's the juice. He's got the juice. He's got the juice. When we unlock the bonus content, you get to watch a 5-minute mini documentary about a news story that may go unreported by much of the media, or it may just be a fresh new libertarian take on the news in a Lego-inspired mini documentary for your pleasure. And Steelbringer, I think that those are $5, the gifted subs. I'm not sure. Someone tell me in the chat, how much is it to gift a sub to somebody? Because he just gifted one. Everybody say thank you to Steelbringer. So that means that all we have to do is raise $70 more by the end of the show, and you will unlock today's Lego-inspired mini documentary. So 573-319-1586 is the text line. Let's hear it for the boys. King of Libertarians joining us this morning at 7:30 a.m. Central Time to talk about his King of the Beach segment. And we've got a lot of course, a million billion great clips to play. We probably won't get to them all. But the big news, in my opinion, how DOGE plans to plow ahead without Elon Musk at the helm. Tesla CEO's White House role is expected to diminish in the coming weeks. Elon Musk's controversial role at the White House is expected to be scaled back, a change that actually risks undercutting the Department of Government Efficiency, but isn't likely to stop its work outright. Now, it just pisses me off because the food Nazis have RFK Jr. as a permanent fixture, and the only thing that libertarians were getting was the Department of Government Efficiency, which has been sidelined, backbenched, and Elon Musk is out. Now, it was always planned that Elon Musk would leave, but he didn't really have to. You know, there was nothing really stopping him from staying and continuing his mission, except for, well, the marketplace, which was showed like a 73% drop in profits for the first quarter of this year for his company, Tesla. So the marketplace is actually acting as the ultimate fiscal discipline here, and Elon Musk has to go back and he has to run his companies. And, you know, frankly, I think that with all the problems that we've had over on X, lately, with all of the bots and all of the glitches and people being locked out and crypto scams, I think it would be nice to see Elon Musk take the helm and have a little bit more, just a little bit more hand in running the operations over there. If him being gone is evidence of the problems that we have. But again, I'd love to hear your thoughts, and you can send them in. You can either drop a note over in the chat, and I might see it. But if you want to guarantee that your message gets to me so that I can read it, you'll have to send it as a text at 573-319-1586. Ike Given a Shit's joining us this morning. Good morning, Pineapple.
Good morning, Pineapple. Looking very good, very nice. Good morning, Pineapple. Looking very good, very nice.
Ding a 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 ding. Now, DOGE, they have cut jobs at nearly every federal agency. So let's give it up for that. All right. We have seen crying government employees, and as much as I'm sad that Elon is leaving, there has been a legacy of firing IRS employees. And I even read yesterday, this is like one of those reports that you have to take with a grain of salt. It came from Axios, which is a very left-wing news source, so you got to be careful. But the word was that Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Elon Musk almost came to blows inside the White House fighting over economic policy. And from what I've seen and heard from this administration, I'm on Elon's side. I don't even know what they're arguing about. Elon is the only one who's been working for the government, it seems, who knows what the hell he's doing over there. Whether it's signal leaks over at the Department of Defense, the lack of information and transparency coming out of the White House, or the FBI, and the non-drop of the Epstein client list, and many other failures to launch from this administration. Will Scharf is doing a fantastic job, I will say. But a lot of disappointment. Elon Musk has been the one bright spot, at least for people like me, and I imagine many of you. I imagine that most of you tend to be the type of people who believe in economic freedom and personal liberty and tend to not like all of these tariffs and all of this chaos and trade war. And I'm sure many of you out there would like to see the Epstein client list just as much as I would, right? We'd like to see some perp walks. Some people should be arrested. The FBI, which tried to jail Trump and was stabbed him in the back and, worked with, hand in hand with the Democrats with this Steele dossier. You'd think Donald Trump would want to see a lot of these people being arrested. But, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, at least up until this point, huge disappointment. And it's just, what are you supposed to do, right? I can't pull a Baghdad Bob for you here. I don't work for them, right? The government's supposed to work for us. Can I get an amen on that, at least, please? Thank you. Dad Bob Baboon says, can't wait for state-by-state DOGE organizations to start sifting through the local waste. Yes, there actually are. And in Missouri, we have that as well. That's actually a really good segue for me to talk about what my buddy Cliff and Remzo are doing with the PA Chase and the Citizens Alliance. They want you guys to know what they're doing out there with this bold new initiative. It's called Joe 1000, and they're trying to elect 1,000 judges of elections, talk about integrity, across Pennsylvania in 2025. So this year, they're trying to ensure that elections are being run with integrity, transparency, and accountability. Right now, in precincts across Pennsylvania, write-in campaigns are going on for America First patriots to run for judge of elections. And that often means no opposition in those races. You can just put your name down and you're probably going to win. That means with just, 10 votes, you could do 10 write-in votes, right, or a majority, you could actually flip a Pennsylvania precinct into a red stronghold. So the PA Chase team under Cliff, they're going to provide the training, the data, and the support. You, if you live in Pennsylvania, or your friend, if you know someone who lives in Pennsylvania, just has to step up and run. It's that simple. If you want to learn more, visit teamcap.org/Joe to find out how to run, support a candidate, or get involved. That's teamcap.org/Joe to find out how to run, support a candidate, get involved. And of course, if you want to go all in on the Maloney strategy, which I highly recommend you do, help win Pennsylvania again and build that red wall, then head to pachase.com. That's pachase.com to support the ballot chasing efforts. Step up, run for judge of elections, help us secure the future of our republic one precinct at a time, and say thank you, Cliff. Americans are tipping less. Are you? Let's take the Wall Street Journal quiz. What do you guys say, huh? I have to say, tipping culture, I think, has gotten out of control. It's not just a muffin, but Americans are tipping less. And a lot of people have been venting over tip requests for basic transactions and service charges. Some diners are actually pushing back now. People are fighting back. It's good to see. Some people are using cash or setting higher standards for service in order to warrant a tip. To save money, people are eating out less, ordering fewer items, or opting for cheaper alternatives like cooking at home. That's what Stephanie and I are doing, man. We try and cut back on the whole eating out thing and eat at home as much as possible. But you guys, do you want to take the quiz here together? All right, here we are. Americans are tipping less. How about you? Good morning, John Rail. Nice to see you, bud. Americans are typically, you get 2 cappuccinos. I would never. I have a cappuccino machine at home, and I have already made enough cappuccinos to pay for the machine after 2 weeks. 2 weeks is how long it took for me to pay off the cappuccino machine for not that I didn't go out for cappuccinos really before this, because I'm not that, I like cappuccinos, but I'm not going to drive to a store and spend gas money. You spend like $10 for a cup of coffee, right? You get 2 cappuccinos to go along with a muffin. Add a tip. Okay. Well, can I set the tip number? It says add a tip. You order 2 cappuccinos and a muffin to go. No tip. 15, 20, 25. Here's the thing. So a cappuccino They do have to steam the milk. And honestly, getting the ratio on that right is not necessarily just a simple task, right? It actually requires just a little bit of panache to get it right. 2 cappuccinos and a muffin. I'm going to say I will tip, but I will do 15% for that. All right. So 56% of readers. Wow. That's kind of crazy. No tip. No tip on that one. Okay, so if I order 2 cappuccinos a month, 35% said 15% tip. Okay, and then look at this: 20% of people said, or 9% of people who answered responded with 20% tip, and then 25% of them are baristas. 1%. So Austin, get it right, Austin. 1% of people who responded said 25% tip. Those people are all baristas or work in a coffee shop. You know it's true. Next, you have a sit-down meal at a restaurant with a bottle of wine. Okay, interesting. Has anybody ever gone to a restaurant and seen like the corking fees? Does anybody know what a corking fee was? I remember when I first lived in New York City and I saw there was a corking fee. There were people who would bring their own wines to dinner, and then they would charge the customer like $20, which is, you could get a decent bottle of wine for $20. People are such snobs in New York, though, so they'll bring their own like $80 bottle of wine and pay the $20 corking fee for the waiter to open the bottle of wine for you. And it's kind of like, it's just such an insult. I get it, right? You don't want to lose the money as a restaurant. Anyways, Austin, shut up. Here we go. Add a tip, question mark. You had a sit-down meal at a restaurant with a bottle of wine. No tip, 15%. 60%. Oh, 76% of people are doing 20%. Like, people are like very angry at Austin right now. I just do 15%. That's what it is. You have a sit-down meal at a nice restaurant, but the service is bad. If the service is bad, like actual bad service, no tip. No, I don't leave a tip if you did bad service, right? That's what your job is, right? You're supposed to give good service, right? A tip is for good service. It's not my job. I'm not your employer, right? That's not how it works. 9% were like me, Miss Ebenezer Scrooge. I'm sorry, but what was the bad service? Did they insult me? Did they say my baby is ugly or something? Like, you're not getting a tip if you give me bad service. No, I think that's you have a right to reserve a tip, and if you give them bad service, okay. What are your thoughts? Am I evil on this one? But I think 73% of people, out of the 73%, at least 50 of the percentage of 73, or at least are liars. Am I wrong? Do you think that people are lying? They just don't want to look like they're stingy. People don't want to. I don't want people to think I'm a bad person. I'm a bad person, I guess, because if you give me bad service, I might not give you anything. I might give you less than 15%, might not give you zero, but it's you're gonna suffer. Like I had to suffer. It's expensive to go out to eat. If you go out to eat, you get, and then you get bad service. What was the point of going out? I could have good service at home. You have a sit-down meal at a restaurant, and the bill includes a credit card charge. That is more common these days. You had a sit-down meal, and the bill included a credit card charge, 15%. There you go. 44% of people answered that. 44% said they'd give 20%, no tip, 9% of readers, 25% tip, 2% of people said, you liars. Those are the people who work the restaurant industry. You get a bottled water at an airport concession stand. Okay, do we tip? No tip. 98% of readers, right? Who are these? This is 1%. This must be the 1%. 1% said that they would leave a 15% tip on a bottled water at an airport concession stand. Okay, well, I guess that means I'm done. You tip a little less than average. Austin. Not really. Not really. I mean, and I really have bad service. I think this test is skewed. I don't believe it. I am not. I'm not adhering to this or your weird tip orthodoxy. Love to hear your thoughts. Send us a text at 573-319-1586. That's the text line at 573-319-1586. Let's hear for the king of all libertarians, guys. Keep unlocking that bonus content. When we get back, we're going to hear from the king of the beach. He went to the beach. He interviewed the people about the Gulf of America. We'll be right back with a royal Thirsty Thursday on the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network.
Are you tired of the strange radioactive effects of leftist culture? Do you ever wonder what happened to good old-fashioned American values? Well, fear no more, because there's a new force fighting back against the cultural rot of today. Introducing Culturama, a right-of-center talk show that's taking back the future today. Hosted by none other than blonde bombshell herself, Daniela Pensack. She's not just talking, she's taking culture back. With sharp takes, brilliant guests, and a few surprises along the way. Tune in to the live video podcast twice a week, because the future doesn't have to be weird. It can be Culturama.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
The conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government, get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
Do you hate the deep state? Do you reject the Antichrist in all his ways? Do you believe that aliens controlled LBJ to assassinate John F. Kennedy? Did you know that the shot can put chemicals in you that will make you more sensitive to 5G? Do you love America? Do you want more freedom? Do you like smoking hot red-headed libertarians? Then the AP for Liberty shop is for you! Check out all the awesome new merch and have a happy new year! Fight the deep state, reject the Antichrist! Visit AP for Liberty shop and get your patriotic merchandise now, or the deep state wins!
Tired of spending your hard-earned money on woke corporations that don't share your pro-freedom values? Fed up with sipping liberal lattes and progressive cappuccinos? Introducing Founding Flavors from AP for Liberty Shop. Get your day started with Washington's Revolutionary Roast. As robust and principled as the man himself, this blend is the shot of energy heard round the world. Or maybe you want to taste the fervor of freedom with Adams's Patriotic Perk. It's as dynamic and balanced as the U.S. Constitution, sure to awaken your spirit of liberty. For the aficionados, we've got the Jeffersonian Java, a complex mix of flavors that speaks volumes about your refined tastes. And don't forget Betsy's Liberty Lullaby, our decaf option, crafted with the same care and dedication Betsy Ross put into our Star-Spangled Banner. This blend lets you enjoy the taste of freedom anytime without losing sleep. No woke beans here, folks. Just pure, patriotic, pro-freedom flavors brewed with love for liberty. So why compromise your principles for a cup of coffee? Stand up for your values, perk up your patriotism, and start your day the American way. Get your founding flavors at apforlibertyshop.com.
We are out here on the first King of the Beach segment for the Liberty Tonight Show. We are here, the beautiful Gulf of America, the beach here in the Panhandle of Florida. I'm asking people some questions about life, about liberty, and about Jesus. Let's do it. What do we got here? You look like a mermaid. I love it. She looks like a mermaid, everybody. Very beautiful. We're here in the Gulf. Here we are. We finally made it. The Gulf of America. Feels good. I have plunged into the Gulf of America. I'm a true American now. When you're looking out at the vastness of everything, and you just realize I am a god on this earth. And there's nothing a pencil-necked bureaucrat is ever going to say to change that.
Unless they want to ban your food dyes. Joining us now, the king of all libertarians. Glad to have you here, O King, your grace. Thankful to have you here, my lord. So, King of the Beach, your first foray into the land that you rule. You have conversations with people on the beach. Tonight you're going to play all of the interviews that you did with the American people, but tell us a little bit, my lord, about your experience.
Yes, it was great to be amongst the people there on the beautiful Gulf of America. And as I say in those clips, this is the first summer that we're going to have the Gulf of America. So I wanted to get out there and see how these beautiful Americans are enjoying their beautiful Gulf of America. It was great, and I didn't get it on camera, unfortunately, because I was coming up to my spot. But there was an old liberal guy that was living in a van, not unfortunately enough, but he was like, Trump's the only king, and I was like, yeah, and he was like, no, I don't like that, and he wouldn't get on camera. He wouldn't talk to me about why he hates Trump, which would have been good content, but no, it was a good experience. I enjoyed it.
Well, we're all looking forward to watching that tonight at rumble.com/Liberty Tonight. Is one of the great new additions to the For Liberty Network's show lineup. You, the king of all libertarians, and Brian Piotr will be live tonight. They were out last week, so for those who missed it, you'll be able to join the king and Brian tonight at 9 p.m. Central after you watch Liberty Tonight. Culturama. And, of course, we'll have Daniela Pensac on here today at 8:30. Now, oh, my Lord, my king, your kingly attributes have been showing lately. You and I were having a back and forth over on X. So the libertarians were mad at you because of the brainworm food Nazi in chief, RFK Jr. and his minions are somehow scientifically smart enough to figure out that the food, that the Apple Jacks I ate this morning are poisoned, but they're somehow not smart enough to figure out how to not buy it, my lord. Can you please explain?
Yes, Brian. We're going to take out the blue dye and put in methylene blue and everything. No.
Did you did you drink methylene blue, by the way?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, good.
Every day.
Good. So
I freebase it off of my kitchen sink.
Good. Well, when the libertarians in charge, we'll ban that for you, just out of spite. But just
there we go. No, but I said in my tweet, my X post. Sorry, Elon. That there's bad optics around the messaging being let companies put poison in your food. I didn't necessarily say that they should be banned. I'm simply trying to help libertarians to say there's probably a different way we can say this other than let the company poison you. All right, and that goes into the point of there's aspects of fraud and things like that where there's misleading or not enough information. So. Sorry, not sorry, libertarians, but get
our
to messaging sucks sometimes.
Sure, but I mean, but that's kind of part of being a libertarian, Like we have to. We also are defending people being able to smoke cigarettes in public places. Like it's not very tasteful to argue in favor of allowing people to smoke cigarettes in bars. But oh my grace, my lord, my king, I imagine that you think private property owners should be allowed to smoke cigarettes on their own at their own bar that they own, right?
Sure, but there's an aspect of can you blow that smoke into a child's face? There's subtlety here that needs to be taken into account. So you should be able to buy whatever you want and put any poison in your body. But there's a level of consent here that I'm concerned with. My preference would be not to say the first thing we say. Hey, breaking news: food dyes are poison. Let those companies do it. Don't be a baby. Like that's not what we should be saying. We should be saying we agree that poison is bad. However, in a perfect world, this is blah blah blah. But we're dealing add some pragmatism to the philosophy and say in a perfect world, this is what we want. However, food dye, if it is poison, is bad. That should be the first thing to be said, not let companies just do whatever they want.
Then why is it that there's no evidence that food dyes are poison? Because I always double check myself, Your Grace, and I wonder, am I the asshole here? Am I wrong? And so I went out in search of evidence that the food dyes were poison, but just saying it's poison doesn't make it poison. I was unable to find any scientific evidence that shows that the food itself is poison. Poison to me is something like arsenic or even formaldehyde. But also I think when we talk about poison, like formaldehyde, for example, did you know that there's formaldehyde in breast milk?
I did not know that.
I've suspected you didn't know that because most of the most of the people who say things like there's poison in the food supply haven't done even the most basic or minimum of research, but they have strong opinions. And I'm not saying you in terms of banning things, because like you said, you didn't call for an outright ban. You said that it's possibly not good from a perspective of marketing, which is a completely separate argument. But you can, if you eat an apple, if you happen to eat an apple seed, did you know that apple seeds contain arsenic?
Yeah, I knew that. Yeah,
and so you're not supposed to eat them. But so should we ban apples, your lord? Did you know that apples contain poison?
Yes, ban the apples. No, and this could be the aspect of like the science and the marketing and messaging are two different things, right? Okay, they're not poisonous, but maybe they're highly addictive. All right, is that moral to sell somebody that is hooking them on something without their proper consent? That's with science aside, that's always going to be an argument. That's all.
People have peanut
science on anything.
Peanut allergies. People have peanut allergies. A small subset of the American people, to them, peanuts are poison. Just like some of these dyes, right? They can cause allergic reactions or sensitivities in a small subset of people. But we don't ban peanuts, even though they are poisonous.
Should we mandate that a product say that it was processed in a facility that has tree nuts? Like this is where this question comes in: is where do we enforce proper consent so people can make a choice about what they're consuming? That's the kind of the message I'm going with. And I said it in a way that was ambiguous enough to cause ruckus. Of course.
Well, why the ruckus? I mean, like, why do you think there was the pushback to it in your mind?
People assume that I want them to be banned, or we should be intervening. The government should be intervening, and this is the quandary that we come across with libertarianism and philosophy, and implementing that philosophy is that okay, who's the enforcement? What system are we in currently that we can utilize to do these things? There is no omnipresent free market food, mandating company. There isn't there because everyone relies on the government to do these regulations and safety and this and that. There's no infrastructure in the free market side to a certain extent. Obviously, there's free trade certifications and things like that are free market.
I would beg to differ. Beg to differ because even though the FDA is like the unitary food and drug governance body, which I don't think should exist either, I mean, there's millions of websites dedicated to healthy eating and informing the public about what types of foods it is that they eat. I think, the whole jumping to banning the food dyes in flying in the face of any scientific evidence that these things are actually poison, or if they are, it affects a small subset of the population, even fewer people than have peanut allergies, right? It strikes me as a strange sort of authoritarianism because, one, it hasn't done its homework, which is where most authoritarianism flows. And two, it purports to use a unitary method, which is the FDA, to force the rest of us to eat alongside their guidelines. And then third, when you look at the options, there are lots of options. Now, there are certain things, for example, like unenriched bread, someone brought up. Well, the FDA mandates that food be enriched with vitamins and minerals, and making your own bread is an option. But again, there's another FDA mandate. But can you see like the sort of slippery slope here that we have when we call something a poison, and then we, in comparison, we don't give people choice, because in the end, people do have a choice. They can choose not to eat it. They can grow their own food. They can decide what to eat. They can decide not to buy it. Yeah. But I mean...
Yeah, absolutely. No, I don't think that the government should be banning any company from doing it. Yeah, like the point is valid. We sell cigarettes, which are Austin, is the science clear there? Is
very clear. Yes, poison? Cigarettes are poison. Okay. Yes.
Yes. and we still sell that. Yeah, but there is very clear labeling that there are these ingredients inside that cause these effects and things like that. Science aside, I think it's always going to be debated, whatever. But let's just say clear evidence comes out that these are harmful to consume. Even with them in the fine print or any information being out there, there is a level of informed consent that I think there, because the average consumer is dumb, right? Like they're not on average going out and looking at every box, and that's why there's apps like Yucca, which I use a lot, to see if those ingredients are in there, and it does give me that informed consent. But yeah,
the average person is dumb.
I want cereal boxes to look like cigarette boxes if they are as poisonous.
Well,
as
I mean, you don't eat it, right? I mean, I imagine that if you don't think other people should eat it, you don't eat it yourself, correct?
Yeah, I eat just the granola. I'm a granola, crunchy granola that comes straight. I just go out to the lawn. I just get grass clippings and pine cones and seeds from the ground, and I put that into a bowl with some raw, organic, grass-fed milk. I'm the crunchiest of all kings.
I'm glad to hear that, King Libertarian. And it's a good discussion. It's a good conversation to have. And see, I think that, the conspiracy theory mindset is the real poison here. Because our self-appointed king of food, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., does is he engages in a form of confirmation bias. I heard him the other day talking about autism, and he said that he says that there are environmental factors, right? External factors. He says that genetics is a dead end. In other words, that that autism is not something that you're born with, but that it is some sort of form of external factor. But what I thought was really fascinating was that after he had already declared that it was caused by external factors, just like many are declaring that the food dyes are poison, then after he said that, he came out and said, and we're going to do some studies to show that that is the case. Well, that's interesting because it's sort of like polling. If you go out and you do a poll, you can actually get a result you want quite easily by asking the questions that you want to have. So, I mean, shouldn't we do the studies first and then start to draw conclusions from that? Isn't that really the way the science should work?
Hell no. Do what you want first and then confirm it later. Come on, Austin. That's what we do here. We make a stand. We're blusterous. And this is what I want and what I like, and I'll prove it later.
And everyone else has to live according to my rules, and
yes.
I'm not going to eat it, and you shouldn't be allowed to either, right?
Shut up, peasant, and take that blue dye out of there.
Exactly. Don't eat the Fruit Loops. Drink methylene blue and colloidal silver.
Yeah, exactly.
We need telemarketers and televangelists and brainworm environmental leftist lawyers to tell us what to eat. Not informed citizens reading naturalnews.com on their own. I kid, Your Grace. But I think you get my point.
Idea when he was dumping that bear cub into Central Park. Like, oh, food dyes. Oh,
poison. Exactly. I love my dead bear cub dumping, brainworm having leftist environmental lawyers telling me what I can and can't eat. Always wise, Your Grace. Your Grace, tonight, the King of the Beach, you went to the beach, you asked the American citizens their thoughts on the Gulf of America. Where can we watch your incredible show tonight?
Yeah, absolutely. Rumble.com/Liberty Tonight, 9 Central. We start off the show right after Culturama with Daniela. And it's going to be a great show. We're back after taking a week off. Because Brian Piotr, I don't know, he was on his period or something. So we're back tonight.
Thank you very much, Your Grace. We shall look forward to seeing you tonight at 9 p.m. Central Time at rumble.com/Liberty Tonight. Have an excellent day, Your Majesty. Ooh. Excellent. Thank you very much. If you've been enjoying the show this morning, don't forget to click the like button. Support the Wake Up America show with those Rumble rants. Or go to forlibertyshop.com. That's the number 4libertyshop.com. If you go to forlibertyshop.com and you visit forlibertyshop.com, you can see our beautiful Gulf of America merchandise. All of our Founding Flavors coffee is poison-free. That's right. No poison at all. The number 4, libertyshop.com is where you can get our Founding Flavors coffee. Buy a box. And if we raise $75 by the end of the show, then you'll unlock today's bonus content mini documentary. I'm going to have so many guests today that I'm not going to have time to remind you guys. So just head on over now. Grab yourself a delicious box of Founding Flavors coffee. Make it 1, make it 2, make it 3. And once we hit $75 raised again by the end of the show, you will get to see today's Lego mini documentary. It's going to be a fascinating and fun segment. You get to watch those instead of commercials while I go pee for liberty, right? Enjoy the commercials. Guys, I'll be right back. Camelia Peterson will join us live at 8 a.m. Central Time, talk about Nancy Mace saying she's being harassed. We'll be right back on the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network.
Are you tired of the strange radioactive effects of leftist culture? Do you ever wonder what happened to good old-fashioned American values? Well, fear no more, because there's a new force fighting back against the cultural rot of today. Introducing Culturama, a right-of-center talk show that's taking back the future today. Hosted by none other than blonde bombshell herself, Daniela Pensack. She's not just talking, she's taking culture back. With sharp takes, brilliant guests, and a few surprises along the way. Tune in to the live video podcast twice a week, because the future doesn't have to be weird. It can be Culturama.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
The conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government, get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
Do you hate the deep state? Do you reject the Antichrist in all his ways? Do you believe that aliens controlled LBJ to assassinate John F. Kennedy? Did you know that the shot can put chemicals in you that will make you more sensitive to 5G? Do you love America? Do you want more freedom? Do you like smoking hot red-headed libertarians? Then the AP for Liberty shop is for you! Check out all the awesome new merch and have a happy new year! Fight the deep state, reject the Antichrist! Visit AP for Liberty shop and get your patriotic merchandise now, or the deep state wins!
Tired of spending your hard-earned money on woke corporations that don't share your pro-freedom values? Fed up with sipping liberal lattes and progressive cappuccinos? Introducing Founding Flavors from AP for Liberty Shop. Get your day started with Washington's Revolutionary Roast. As robust and principled as the man himself, this blend is the shot of energy heard round the world. Or maybe you want to taste the fervor of freedom with Adams's Patriotic Perk. It's as dynamic and balanced as the U.S. Constitution, sure to awaken your spirit of liberty. For the aficionados, we've got the Jeffersonian Java, a complex mix of flavors that speaks volumes about your refined tastes. And don't forget Betsy's Liberty Lullaby, our decaf option, crafted with the same care and dedication Betsy Ross put into our Star-Spangled Banner. This blend lets you enjoy the taste of freedom anytime without losing sleep. No woke beans here, folks. Just pure, patriotic, pro-freedom flavors brewed with love for liberty. So why compromise your principles for a cup of coffee? Stand up for your values, perk up your patriotism, and start your day the American way. Get your founding flavors at apforlibertyshop.com.
All right, so it was probably the biggest viral video of the weekend. South Carolina Congresswoman Nancy Mace posted this now infamous video online after a man who is allegedly one of her constituents confronted her while she was shopping. Take a look.
I do them every year.
Every year?
You want to keep going?
Do any more this
you want to keep going and keep harassing me? You could have gone to a dozen town halls last year.
I asked if you're doing any more this year. It was one simple question.
Yeah.
Are you doing a
I've already done one. I'll do plenty more.
Any more this year? It was a simple question.
You're always invited.
Okay, sweet. Well,
and by the way, I voted for gay marriage twice.
What does that have to do with me?
So I'm just saying, it has to everything to do with you.
You think everything about me has to do with gay marriage?
I do,
That's
absolutely.
your first stance when you speak with me?
Because you people on the left are crazy.
So
You're absolutely crazy.
I'm absolutely
you are. And get out of my face.
You're insane.
Goodbye.
You're insane. You're gonna me? You're
Yep.
gonna be voted
Bye.
out so fast this year. I
I'm
can't
not.
wait for you to
I want you guys so much.
You're a disgrace to this state. That's what you are. You're a disgrace. I asked you a simple question, and you just to go on this tirade and tell me you.
Yeah, you.
Disgusting.
Get out of my face.
You.
Get out of my face. Try. What's your name? What's your name? What's your name?
Me?
Yep, I sure did.
The first thing you're gonna say to me is
Absolutely.
you a
Get the out of my face.
You.
Now.
Just a peaceful weekend afternoon going shopping, right?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. Good morning, pineapples. Rise in freedom. Pineapples. Do they contain arsenic? Story 11. Brainworms, beets, bears, Battlestar Galactica. Welcome to the Wake Up America show. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. It's hard to know which... in a fight between a woman and a gay, do you take the side of the gay man because he's a man, or do you take the side of the female because she's a Republican? I don't know. I think the gay dude was being quite reasonable, honestly. But Nancy Mace, she called it a threatening harassment, and she even felt like she was in danger from the gay man because a man asked her a question. Matt Walsh says, why are conservatives putting up with this ultra-feminist bullshit from a Republican politician? Even AOC has never gone this far. Joining us now to defend her sex is Camellia Peterson. What's up, CJ? Yeah.
So I think, if I'm having to choose between the two, maybe the first question I'm going to ask is, okay, which one of you likes Battlestar Galactica? Because I'm going with that person.
Camellia, listen, man, I just want to be liked. I want everybody to think I'm fun and nice and cool, and, I don't want to... the knowledge is a curse. So when I see something, I say something. And I think Nancy Mace is just kind of going flat out flipping retarded. I don't know if you've ever seen The Office. Have you ever done a run-through of The Office?
Bits and pieces. I haven't watched the whole thing.
There's this scene in The Office, I'll just tell you, where Michael Scott has like this toxic ex-girlfriend, and she comes after like they've broken up for a while, like they're kind of like off and on and off and on, and she comes back after being gone for a while, and she's had a boob job, and she's trying to convince him that they should get back together, and he was going to say no until he saw her boob job, and then all of a sudden he's just like, Is this what the Nancy Mace effect is? Is this what people like AOC? Because they seem to be plumb retarded in my mind. Your take?
Well, I do think that there's probably some validity to that argument. We have also seen it with Kristi Noem, to be honest. But yeah, no, it is. I tell you what, watching Nancy Mace's evolution over the last several years has been something to behold. I really liked her when she first came into Congress. I think she was working on some good things, had some good stances, and then I don't know where it started, but boy, she started going downhill. And I know you didn't play that section of the clip, but this is a pattern with her. It's not like she's just all of a sudden, become this warrior for whatever. What Matt Walsh has been getting, which, by the way, can I just say, I know Matt Walsh says he's been this way forever, but Matt Walsh has really based the last few months.
I know.
And, I find myself agreeing with him way more than I ever did before.
I used to get kind of annoyed with the Daily Wire people to an extent, and now for some reason, now that the woke right exists, And Jordan Peterson's calling him out, and Joe Rogan, and like the libertarian movement has just drank the retard juice. I'm enjoying Matt Walsh a lot more these days more than I used to. He used to annoy me, but now I find him to be quite based.
He's not, and I think part of it is that he's not towing the populist line.
Yeah.
I mean, he came out and he was like, tariffs, that's a terrible idea.
I know.
And, he's talking about the income tax and everything else. And then but one of the points that he made is that Nancy Mace, when she's jumped onto this whole anti-trans issue and, the bathroom issue and all that kind of stuff.
Even though she said she voted for gay marriage.
Right. Well, yeah, we can get to that in just a second. But he pointed out that she did not jump on that bandwagon until it was already like really commonly acceptable to do that. Like many other people had gone before her and actually brought the legitimate issues to the forefront. And then she saw what was getting the attention and she was all over that. And so this has become a pattern with her. She's had multiple confrontational interactions with people over this issue. And, she plays the victim in it and people are like, oh, look at these people are going after her. But I don't know if you remember that incident where she had a confrontation with somebody. I don't know if it was on the steps of the Capitol or whatever, but she said that he grabbed her wrist and she had to go to the hospital and get it checked out. And when you went back and watched the video, it did not happen. Like she totally set that up and set herself up to do that. And then it's kind of like in sports, where you kind of fake going down extra hard for the injury, right? And so this has become a pattern with her, and she escalates it very quickly. And the one thing that she does that is in the remainder of that interview with Hannity, is that every other word is as a victim, as a victim, as a victim. She's always talking about her trauma. And I'm over here thinking, look, if your trauma is causing this much trouble in your life and your ability to serve in Congress, I think you probably need to resign and maybe go invest in yourself and do some healing and get some therapy. Because if you cannot handle this, you're not fit to serve in Congress, because it's not easy and nobody has ever said it would be or should be.
Yeah, it's amazing to me, though, that so many people fall for it because, the letter after their name, right? So, like, people who are just team, rah, 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 let's support them because they're a Republican. You're never going to be able to speak logic to people like that. But this has become an issue in our ongoing discussion, Camellia, about the war on the sexes here, which I think Matt Walsh is, more than just the politics necessarily, is the question of intergender relationships. Because Matt Walsh says specifically, he says, here Nancy Mace says she felt, quote, threatened, harassed, and in danger because a man asked her a question, right? Which is kind of what women, speaking generally, tend to do whenever they are made uncomfortable because someone who is a man, made them feel uncomfortable, but maybe since they're a politician, they're supposed to be made uncomfortable. I didn't see anything in this interaction that made me think that he was doing that he was harassing her or threatening her. She was the one who, like, out of nowhere started talking about gay marriage and making it this thing about his sexuality. He was asking her, like, when the next town hall was. And, and then she just started spouting off and saying that she felt harassed. If anything, she was harassing him. Your take?
For sure. I mean, she escalated that, no doubt. In fact, I was gratified to see that the vast majority, it seemed like, of the reactions to that video when she first put it out, because of course she posts the video. She does this and she takes the videos and she escalates it because it gives her good online content. She is a content creator. And so that's what is behind all this, is the need for attention and notoriety. And so she absolutely escalated that. And and she even said it. He was like, where did this gay marriage question cut? Like, what does that have to do with anything? He's like, is that what you think of when you think of me? And she's like, well, yes. I was like, well, okay. That's like just putting somebody in their little identity box now, isn't it? I thought Republicans didn't do that. But I do think that, Matt Walsh talked about that why do we put up with this kind of feminism on the right? and this is not, I mean, and this is like whatever wave feminism that we're on now. This isn't just, wanting women to have equal opportunities. And the great irony of feminism has been that it has led to women playing the victim rather than being strong and saying, I can do this and I'm not going to blame anybody else for, my lack of accomplishment or whatever else. Even if they haven't been, oppressed in something, they will find a way to be oppressed because that's what they have to do to keep maintaining that narrative and that victimhood status. And I hate that about the whole thing, because I do think that so many of the women who fought for equal opportunities, who fought for the right to vote, they did not want this to be what feminism looked like. That this was not their goal. Their goal was not feminism at the expense of men or to play the victim. I think they would be appalled at what it looks like today.
Well, you see, I think that Matt Walsh's point here is, unsaid. What he says, why are conservatives putting up with this ultra-feminist bullshit? I mean, it sounds pretty straightforward here. But left unsaid is this entire conversation about how the double standards which exist have empowered women to the point where I always make this joke that equality for women would be a step down. So but I mean, here's the thing. Nobody's going to say, well, women should be made to feel as unsafe as men have to feel. So what is the solution, Camelia?
I mean, I don't know where we find the balance now. We're at that really weird point in the evolution of the gender wars in society where you're not going to put the genie back in the bottle, right? Women are going to work, and I don't think we need to, or we should, but I do think that we have to find that balance that people do have to manage their expectations, and life is trade-offs. For women, if you want to be equal and you want to do it all, but you also want to have children and you also want to be taken care of, because I think that is, like it or not, that is instinctual, in our human nature, as far as the differences between men and women, is that men tend to be the providers and the caretakers, and women they like to be taken care of. For the most part. And so I think that, we've talked about it before, women have been sold this lie that you can have all of the things, and you can have a lot of it. But it's like I saw a post the other day, this man was, can't remember who it was, some big, business guy was posting on Twitter, and he said something, he was talking about how that he and his wife both work, and, they have daycare for the kids, and they have a nanny, and they have a housekeeper. But, when it comes in the evening and they're trying to have dinner and then make lunches for the kids, and they're just exhausted by the time bedtime rolls around, and, how do people do it? Does anybody else And I'm thinking, okay, life is trade-offs. If you choose for both of you to work and you value your wealth over your time with your children, and you think you need more people to help you manage that, well, this is the life that you choose. And for women, this is the life that you choose. If you want it all, something has to, you can't say yes to everything. Something gets said no to.
Yeah, absolutely, Camelia. And it's a shame that we can't get more people, especially more beautiful ladies like yourself, to get on board with this. Because what I notice about your Nancy Maces or your Anna Paulina Lunas is they're just straight up bringing Democrat policies from the 1980s and the 1990s. So, for example, this $5,000 to have a baby. I loved Hannah Cox's take. The type of people who are so stupid that they would have a baby for $5,000 are the last people that we should be giving $5,000 to.
Yes.
Is that how you feel about it?
Yes, I mean, it's just so dumb because, and once again, Matt Walsh is also on the right page on this too, right? And he's a very pro-family guy. But I mean, the thing is that it's just dumb because there's a mountain of evidence where it's kind of like the arguments, well, socialism hasn't really been tried.
Yes.
Well, incentivizing, procreation really hasn't been tried, except it has, and it's failed in many places. So it's not going to work here either. You don't incentivize people to have babies in that way. It's it's a lifelong commitment. And do you think that $5,000 is going to make that better? And think about that. What are you saying to a child to say that, your mommy and daddy were thinking about having children, but they just didn't really know if they wanted to. But the government gave them $5,000, and now you're here. Don't you feel loved? Like you were bought. And so I totally agree with Hannah. And I think that this is it's crazy. We seem to talk about this every so often, and just the idea that people can't think through like why they think this would work, it just boggles my mind.
Well, see, like on one hand, I guess I understand where people are coming from when they say things like people are too stupid to be able to make these decisions for themselves because you see so much evidence of it. But I still believe that people should have choices and be able to make decisions, even if they make the wrong choice. Like, for example, if they want to eat beautiful Fruit Loops that maybe their children might be allergic to. But I also think that, people should be allowed to try things like peanuts, which are actually more allergic. But for some strange reason, Camellia, whether people have an R or a D after their name, they just don't really seem to quite understand that, not everybody should have to live or eat or breathe or work out or eat like they do. But for some reason, people want to force us to live like they do.
Sure, I think and it doesn't matter if it's left, right, middle, whatever. Like there is this thing, I think, in human nature to a certain extent. Like we resist being controlled, but we also want to be able to control other people. So we feel like, everybody has their confirmation bias, right? I mean, so like I'm doing this my way and it's working really well for me. So it must work well for everyone else and they should do it the way I'm doing it. And I'm over here like, hey, I love that Aldi has made their own policy that they don't use artificial colors in any of the foods that they sell. And that's just one more reason that I love shopping there. And that is the free market at work. And that's been in place for years. And so it is this authoritarianism, on the right and the left.
And it comes down to basic logical fallacies. It's always something like I was explaining to the king earlier about this concept of something happens before something, therefore it causes that thing, or like a misunderstanding of the concept of dosage, right? So people are like, well, if it has poison in it, then it should be labeled. Okay, well, why is it that I've never bought an apple that says that this contains arsenic, and that I should be careful about eating the seeds? If you eat seeds, you shouldn't give your dog an apple if it might have a seed in it, right? Because dogs are even more sensitive to it. But it's funny. Authoritarianism that I have found, Camellia, this has just been and I've been in this now for 20 to 25 years. Usually the more authoritarian someone is, the more fucking stupid they are, right? The dumber they are. The bigger they believe like that the Jews did 9/11 or, and they rigged up all the buildings and then brought down WT7 at the same time. Every single time. Their philosophy, their ideologies become more and more and more and more incoherent to the point where it doesn't really make a lot of sense trying to talk to them because they've already made up their mind. And for them, whatever those views are tend to be a religion. But for a very, very small percentage of them, Camellia, and I've run into them, and now you in politics have run into them. I don't know if you've been following with the controversy with Jordan Peterson when he went on Joe Rogan the other day. Did you happen to see any of that or any clips of that or hear about it?
I saw something just yesterday about what he said was it about the woke right or no, the Christ is King comment that he made. That's the little bit that I saw. I don't know.
Well, that was part of it, right? But he was talking about like which percentage of the population. He was talking about the woke right, essentially, what James Lindsay has been bringing up. And he was talking about the percentage of the population which are what you might call psychopaths, right? And they call them cluster B on the scale of it's a book that the psychologists and the psychiatry industry uses for determining pathology in terms of mental health for patients, and they found that about 3 to 4%.
Oh, the DSM-5, yeah.
Right. They have these what are called dark tetrad traits, things scoring high on narcissism, right, lack of empathy, et cetera, et cetera. And what I have found is that typically the most authoritarian people score very high on those traits, right? They're very, very high. And, they also, Reason did a study a long time ago too, that was really interesting, where they said that like people who have an innate like level of disgust that is extremely high, if they tend to find other human beings and their behaviors disgusting, that also was correlated with more authoritarian views, right? And what was fascinating too was that there seemed to be a biological component in this, Camellia, because when they studied those people, they also found that people who are disgusted more with other people's behavior also are more sensitive to things like perfumes or colognes, which they find disgusting when other people wear them. They're more sensitive to other people's disgust. And so instead of, for example, if they have a peanut allergy, they're disgusted by peanuts, they want everybody to not be able to eat peanuts on the airline because of their allergy. They want to force everybody to live according to their own standards because they find their fellow man disgusting. And then, of course, what was fascinating was that people who they had overall libertarian beliefs were the most tolerant, the least disgusted by their fellow humans, the least likely to want to control everybody else. And we kind of thought that the perfume smelled nice or the cologne smelled decent. You know, it was a nice touch for the date that evening. Does any of this surprise you, Camellia?
No, so it goes back to this, nature nurture argument and blank slate and whatnot. Excuse me. And I think that one of the downsides to the whole blank slate discussion is the dismissal of the genetic component of human behavior. And I do think that there's undeniably a genetic component. And I think that it like sort of that idea is like we push against that too, because it sort of makes you think, well, can a person really change? And I think that yes, like a person really can change, but I do think that some people are born with a propensity toward, certain types of behaviors or things affect them differently, and therefore they respond differently. But the value of what we have learned about, studying human nature and psychology is that your biology may, it's good to be informed about your biological factors and your biological imperatives, but they do not, because we are human, they do not have to define, your formation as a human being. Like that's where the nurture part comes in, is that you then learn to recognize those traits within yourself and to work on those and to cope with those and, find ways to change those. And I think but yeah, there's definitely a genetic component. And I think that self-awareness, like so many of those people, we would also say lack self-awareness. And if you point out some of those things to them, they're not going to like that and can't see it. They just literally cannot see what everybody else is seeing. Like you can have a person who probably fits this profile, and they probably go about offending people left and right. And but you cannot tell them that they are the problem. They'll be like, oh, everybody else is the problem. They're interpreting what I say wrong. Like they're being too easily offended. Like it's everybody else, it's not me. And at a certain point, in that situation, you have to accept that, well, maybe it's you. Like if everybody else is telling you the same thing, but it's very hard to tell someone something like that because it's hard to see those things within yourself.
It is really difficult for us to self-examine. That's why this week I'm on a real tear, Camellia. And, maybe you don't want to, read the whole Aristotle Nicomachean Ethics. But if you haven't done a refresher on the classics, let me tell you, it was like a cool drink of water in a conspiratard sea, in the ocean of stupidity that we've been just drinking nonstop, especially on the internet. Obviously, going outside and touching grass is great. But if you don't have that option, maybe just ask Grok to give you a good overview of the Nicomachean Ethics, because I'll tell you, it's making me feel just so much better and helping me to rebalance and recenter, just like kind of my martial arts helps me to, sort of cleanse physically. Every once in a while, you need a mental cleanse. And, since you and I are not Bible-believing Baptists, we have to go elsewhere for our ideological and spiritual awakenings. And I recommend Aristotle.
Yeah, there's nothing new under the sun, right? I mean, these things that we're talking about right now were things that's why we have the writings of Aristotle and Plato and Socrates, is because these are all issues that are human nature and they were dealing with back then too. And so, we had these philosophers who studied this and, talked about it and discussed it. And so we get to benefit and build on their wisdom. And so because there are constants in human nature and how we interact in life. And so Yes, I have certain things that, so I have a tendency to, well, by the way, before I see this, there's a reason why I'm trying to remember who said it, that liberty is not for the masses of men. And so, and there's
H.L.
also
Mencken.
a reason, I was like, that's human nature. Okay, was it Mencken? Okay.
It was H.L. Mencken. Yes.
So, I mean,
most men fear liberty.
Right. I mean, so I have what I call comfort reads, books that I carry around with me from time to time. And like several years ago, it was Ralph Waldo Emerson's a collection of writings by him. And it was like, if I ever got like, wound up in all this stuff in my head, like if I needed to just like chill and like reset, I would read through that to kind of get myself centered again. And lately it's been a book by Ryan Holiday called Stillness is the Key.
Yeah.
Like, I need a little stillness in my life right now because like things are just frenetic anymore in this information age, and it's just constant. And we see, and I think that part is one of the challenges for us is that we see this human nature and human tendency like magnified times 1,000 because of the online nature of our interaction.
I know it's painful too because it's harder for me and you to get away from it. There's so much toxicity, but it's kind of part of our job to keep our finger on it. Real quick before we let you go, school choice in Missouri still moving ahead, even though some Republicans are opposing it.
Yes. So I think yes. So the biggest thing for Missouri right now, like there's all kinds of different approaches to it. Like it's so sad because in Missouri we have to fight to even just get like a very limited style of open enrollment within public schools. But I will say, been a priority for the governor, and just so people are in Missouri are aware, like he put a direct appropriation of $50 million for the school choice program in the budget, which I love to see, and that shows how important it is to him. There are Republicans in the Senate who are trying to take it out. But fortunately, we have a lot of them who are determined to put it back in. So the debate continues, but it is hopeful because we have a governor who leads on the issue, and the anti-school choice people on the right, our own woke right? They are crying some of their liberal tears looking at the successes that we've had in good policy so far this session.
I love it. Camellia Peterson, she is drinking liberal tears, whether those liberals have a D or an R after their name. Thank you very much, Camellia, and thanks for all your good work you do here in Missouri to fight for freedom. I don't know where Missouri would be without you. Have a good one.
Well, thanks. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.
You also set that conversation up, but it poked up and made itself manifest in that conversation. And the issue is, how do you identify the psychopathic pretenders? And it's even worse now, and then make a barrier, right? Now, the right was calling for the left to do that for decades, and they didn't, and they couldn't, and the left is not good at drawing barriers, partly temperamentally. The right is somewhat better, but there's no shortage of monstrosity there. And so then the question is, how do you draw the line? And that's kind of what I was, because I've been watching these right-wing, they're not right-wing, these psychopathic types manipulate the edge of the conservative movement for their own gain. And a lot of that's cloaked in anti-Semitic guys. There's plenty of anti-Semitism on the left too, by the way. So it's not unique to the right.
Well, but particularly now.
Yes, particularly now. And so, you've let your curiosity guide you, your curiosity and your desire for knowledge, this quest, you've let that guide you as a podcaster. And by the way, I'm trying to work through exactly the same sort of thing. How do you know?
So how do you know when somebody's a psychopath? Is Jordan Peterson going off the rails, or is he making a lot of sense? I think he's making a lot of sense. My next guest, Daniela, thinks that he's off his rocker. Let's talk to Daniela about that. It should be a great conversation. We'll be right back for our Thirsty Thursday, our Royal Thirsty Thursday. You unlock the bonus content. Thank you for that. We'll be right back. It's the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network.
Take out a loan, you pay it back. Period. End of story. This isn't revolutionary, it's not controversial. It's how borrowing has worked since someone first asked, "Can I pay you back later?" But in modern America, personal responsibility is now seen as oppression, and expecting people to pay for their own decisions is somehow a political wedge issue. Enter the never-ending debate over student loans, and the misguided idea that forgiving billions in debt somehow makes it go away. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. That debt doesn't vanish, it gets transferred from the borrower to you. If you didn't take out a loan, tough. You're now expected to subsidize someone else's degree in political activism and performance art. If you already paid off your student loans, well, sorry, sucker. Guess you did it the hard way. You should have waited for a politician to buy votes. Now the Department of Education is restarting collections on defaulted student loans, ending a years-long pause that started during the pandemic. Over 5 million borrowers are in default, and now the government's picking up where it left off, resuming wage garnishments, tax refund offsets, and reductions to Social Security benefits. Cue the outrage. How dare they? Scream the folks who've had 4 years to plan for this day. But let's be honest, what exactly did people think would happen? That the money owed would just disintegrate? That's not how math works. That's not how debt works. And it's certainly not how freedom works. Forgiving student loans doesn't make the cost disappear. It redistributes it. To the truck driver who never went to college, to the single mom who worked nights to pay off her loans the hard way, to the welder who took an apprenticeship instead of a women's studies degree. And what do they get in return? The privilege of paying for someone else's education so that person can tweet about capitalism being evil from a coffee shop with Wi-Fi and pronoun pins. Imagine trying this logic anywhere else in society. Imagine getting a mortgage, refusing to pay, and then demanding your neighbor cover your bill because housing is a human right. Or walking out of Target with a cart full of stuff and expecting the cashier to thank you for stimulating the economy. But when it comes to college, suddenly responsibility is oppression and consequences are violence. And look, I get it. Some people were sold a lie. They were told that if they went to college for any degree, they'd be guaranteed a high-paying job and a life of comfort. That was nonsense, sold to a generation by bloated universities and enabled by a government that made it way too easy to borrow way too much. But guess what? Just because you were lied to doesn't mean someone else should foot the bill. This is the difference between charity and coercion. You want to donate to someone struggling with loans? Awesome. Voluntary generosity is beautiful. But forcing your neighbor to pay off someone else's debt is not generosity. It's theft with good PR. Colleges are the ones that ought to be held accountable. These institutions cranked tuition through the roof the moment they knew federal loans would keep flowing. They built fancy rec centers, added administrative bloat, and hired grievance consultants instead of actual professors. And when it all collapsed into a mountain of debt, they walked away untouched, still tenured, still tax exempt, still smug. If anyone should be writing checks, it's them. You want reform? Start by making schools co-sign student loans. You'd see tuition drop overnight. Because if Harvard had to pay back half the debt for every unemployed sociology major it produced, I guarantee they'd start taking job outcomes seriously. You want to help future students? And the federal loan gravy train that props up these universities and traps young people in six-figure debt with no skills. Expand trade programs. Kill the stigma around blue-collar work. Show kids that a degree in engineering is not the same as a degree in theoretical puppetry. But let's drop the fantasy that we fix this problem by erasing it, because we don't. We just shift it, and we punish the people who played by the rules. If your plan to make higher education fair requires taking money from people who never benefited from it, it's not a solution. It's a shakedown wearing a cap and gown. Thanks for watching. If you believe in personal responsibility, honest economics, and calling out these sham solutions for what they are, check out forlibertyshop.com. That's where we sell the truth and the t-shirts that go with it. Support what you believe in. Shop forlibertyshop.com. See you next time.
I think that virtualization has enabled the psychopaths.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, well,
without a doubt.
That's a terrible thing because the psychopathic types, they're always the death of everything. Like I'm seeing this come up on the right now. So imagine this. I've been working on a new...
Virtualization has enabled the psychopaths. Joe Rogan agrees. Good morning. Rise in freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show on the For Liberty network. Well, what does that mean? What does it mean to be a psychopath? Well, Jordan Peterson, he's a clinical psychologist, not a psychiatrist, right? He's not a doctor of medicine. He's he's an egghead, an academic, which I get. I mean, it made sense to me. I looked it up yesterday. I did the whole dark tetrad thing to see like where I fall on it. Actually, it was like low on narcissism, which I was kind of like, oh, that's surprising. A lot of people have always said, Austin, you have such a huge ego. Well, because I've read my Ayn Rand. I think an ego is a good thing. But I don't sit around looking at myself in the mirror. I don't think I'm particularly attractive or particularly special. I'd rate myself at like a 6, maybe a 7 or 8 when I was like younger and handsome. But like these days, 44 years old, right? Time catches up to us all. But someone who's young and pretty and will probably be so forever, the Dionysian ideal. Daniela Pensack joins us live right now on the Wake Up America show. Good morning, Daniela.
Austin, thank you for having me.
I'm glad to have you here, Daniela. Your show, Culturama, is the tits. You can watch it at rumble.com/Culturama. I like to joke around. You're the Marilyn Monroe with a master's degree, but you do have a master's degree. What is your master's degree in?
It's actually in public policy.
Oh, so you're an expert. Okay, right. So you have a good... Yes, so you're credentialed. Well, Jordan Peterson, he's a doctor. So I guess we call him Dr. Jordan Peterson. That's a credential, one step higher than a master's degree.
Absolutely.
I played that clip of Jordan Peterson, and I see this very much in the context of what James Lindsay is talking about with like the Nick Fuentes characters or the who's the MMA fighter who is always on the Jews. I saw that in the context of that conversation, but I think you may have seen something that I didn't see because you were actually very critical of Jordan Peterson. Let me just read your paragraph. This is what you wrote, and then I want you to help me understand. You said, Jordan Peterson is one of the more tragic figures in the modern American right wing, where he began as a staunch advocate for freedom of speech during Bill C-16, and launched himself to perpetual relevancy, only to fall hard, which you think may be due to the machinations of his daughter, which I think is another subject, but we can get into later. Many say his spiral only began after joining Daily Wire, but I beg to differ. It has been evident to me that his high-trait neuroticism and struggle with the faith is enough indication that it was bound to happen. He's high-level disagreeable, high-level neurotic, and these individuals like Peterson will always crash and burn. It only gives him more chances to emulate the Phoenix journey, which I assure you he yearns. I would know. Interesting. There's a lot to unpack there. So help me to understand, what is it that you say, like, what is it about him explaining psychopathy that you find to be a part of his downward spiral?
Yeah, of course. So Jordan Peterson, like I said in that tweet, is a figure that I actually look up to. A lot of people in the right wing look up to. He was, like I said, a staunch advocate for free speech, which is like one of my most pressing issues. But it seems to be the case that, Jordan has went through a long period of, let's just say, improvements. He had his issues with Xanax and so forth in the past. Obviously, that's not applicable today. But he's had some issues for like the last 5 or more years or so, it seems like, and not just with his fan base, but also with himself internally, which is, as you can tell, I don't know if you follow Jordan Peterson or his family, Austin, but they clearly, him and his daughter at least, have really high trait neuroticism. In fact, I think he even admitted so on Rogan or at some platform. And I also score high neuroticism, so that's why, and disagreeableness, so that's why I can actually relate to him. But it seems to be that his critique that had just occurred, I think, is gatekeeping parts of the right wing. Now, especially the ascendant right wing is what some young people are labeling it as instead of the dissident right wing. Now, I will agree with him that there are obviously, elements of any political movement that will attract a certain type of dark triad figure. That's no doubt. I worked in politics. Austin, I'm sure you're aware of this as well. It happens quite often, and I very much believe that it is probably true that within the extreme radical right wing as well as an extreme left, it will attract a broader, I would say, base of perhaps high dark triad trait people. But this is a growing movement. More young men, I would say, even than young women, are getting involved. And it seems to be that, at least as far as his comments are concerned, especially related to the Christ is King rhetoric, and I've seen his daughter already post about it this morning, I think, or last night already, where they're critiquing the usage of this term and people that brings in larger swaths of younger people into the movement. And I can't help but think that is gatekeeping it to a degree where, and perhaps there is an element of woke rightism that should be critiqued. And I mean, especially as far as grapers are concerned, I'm a pretty big.
I mean, you're a gatekeeper there. You're a gatekeeper there, right?
Yeah, because I mean, there are levels of absurdity that young people, because the graper movement is unique. I mean, it attracts really young people, and people like that, especially young men, are attracted to absurdism. Where down the line, if they do want to get involved into serious policy, they actually have to have the conversation, right? Instead of say they want to rape, kill, and murder people or women. So there's optics involved, but still, I mean, I know plenty of young men and young women to a degree that are involved in the right wing, that are younger, that are even converting to Christianity, that, utilize a Christ is King phrase, that want a more, I suppose, traditional Americanist or a more traditional view of the right that are normal, that can be normal. And I think that he does seem to be taking a more gatekeeping approach to it as far as his rhetoric was concerned.
Sure. And I think, you make a lot of good points here, Daniela, and there's quite a lot to unpack there. I don't want to chase every rabbit down every hole there, but I do want to suggest that, I mean, don't you think that some people are posting the word Christ is King specifically for the purpose of, and using the Lord's name in vain for the purpose of being exclusionary to Jews?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. That's certainly an element of it. Do I think that's the grand majority, though? And perhaps I'm naive, but I don't think that's the grand majority of people who do use that phrase. I mean, I have colleagues, I have friends that use that phrase.
Right, but I don't think it is either. I agree with you. But he's talking, he says specifically that 3 to 4% of the population has these, what they call cluster B psychology traits, which is a tendency towards psychopathic, traits. So, I mean, if anything, really then what you're saying is that, 95, 96, 97% of people are using it appropriately. But what Jordan is saying here, it seems, is that the 3 to 4% are always the ones who spoil it for everyone else. He says specifically that it's the psychopaths who don't really believe anything. They actually don't believe Christ is King. So, like, I don't know if you know the MMA fighter. His name's Jake, and I forget it. I always want to say Paul, but it's not Jake Paul. He's this Jake Shields. Yeah. So he actually specifically said that he doesn't actually believe that Christ is King. He only uses the term specifically to make people angry or to rile them up. So isn't that really what Jordan Peterson is pointing at? The 3 to 4% of the psychopaths? I mean, being on the right doesn't make you immune from being a psychopath, does it?
Oh no, he is critiquing that small minority. I just would prefer, and it seems to be the case, that and I don't know if you've been following his tweets of the past, but because ordinarily I would agree with you in this context, but his tweets of the past that led up to this interview for the last several months has been kind of, reiterating this similar point, which provides further context of why I'm concerned as a figurehead, as a thought leader like Jordan Peterson is, that has great legitimacy within the movement, is continually utilizing this rhetoric. For instance, he was very critical of like internet anonymity for quite a while, for a few months now. And that part, that's what concerns me, is that him and his daughter are very critical of internet anonymity. So there, and anonymity, still, unfortunately, I'm a face chat online, so I give myself way more credit. I would say it's courageous to be a face chat now, still. But anonymity is, unfortunately,
but if it is necessary, but people. It is. But here's what I think is kind of like the problem is Jordan Peterson in that interview, he talks about unearned social merit. He says that the problem with these psychopaths is that what they want, and what I'm seeing with a lot of the Generation Z is that especially in like their misunderstandings of like buying a house versus earlier generations buying a house, is this kind of this same kind of leftist desire for unearned status, which is really a really important concept in this, because you have higher status, in my opinion, because you are a face chatter. You are a person who shows your face. Sure. You have courage. And as I'm reading my Aristotle this week, and I'm getting back into my Nicomachean ethics, I'm talking. What is it real? How is it that you are a courageous person? How do you have courage? Well, you have to practice it, in the sense. Sure. So if you're anonymous, you're less courageous. It doesn't mean that you're a coward, but it does mean that you don't get the same level of social merit for courage that people who are on the front line do. And don't you think that a big part of the pushback to Jordan Peterson are people who want unearned social credit for things that they don't do?
Not necessarily. That is true to a large degree, actually. I mean, I would believe that. I would agree with that. Like I said, being a face chat, especially initially on Twitter, for instance, when I did it, requires, a certain level of political flexibility, but also courage. But I also have the blessing, or I had the blessing, and I still do, of working within when I started my Twitter account, of working within the political spheres and the circles that I've already earned that status where I can tout certain opinions, with my face publicly. But a lot of people, they work in industries, unfortunately, where it is extremely exclusionary, as it is. And these are like large industries where they need to make a living, but they even may have families. But if they go out with their opinions, even saying they're a Trump supporter, they can't support themselves or even their families. And that's still a problem that we're fighting against. And that's why anonymity
Agreed.
is still required to a certain degree.
Absolutely. I do not disagree with that. But you have to be careful because, with the anonymous, with the well-intentioned anonymous, are those 3 to 4% of cluster B psychopaths who ruin it for everything. It's kind of like, when it comes to crime statistics, they did a number of crime statistics in New York City, and they found that it was like 5% of the population of criminals, the people who commit crimes, commit like 80% of all the crimes. So if you just kept the people locked up who committed all of the crimes, then you would reduce the crime by something like down to like 20% of what it is right now. And I imagine that most conservatives would say, well, you should just lock those people up. So what's the conservative view when it comes to the 3 to 4% of psychopaths that are ruining online anonymity for the rest of us, Daniela?
Unfortunately, that's the case with a lot of movements, and I would say almost any political movement, is that you will, like I said initially, this field, this industry, especially politics, is going to attract a very unusual bunch of people for the most part. And unfortunately, with any movement, you are going to have that, rotten batch of apples that can infect and affect it ideologically. Now, I think that there is a certain level of effectiveness at some point, for instance. Groypers are just, their message is only going to relate to a certain amount of people, to a certain age, and it will only survive for so long. It's not a sustainable model. It's not a sustainable ideology, if you can call it an ideology.
We already made the joke that as soon as Nick Fuentes gets laid, that movement is over.
Exactly, and his followers. And in fact, you even see now with the Groyper movement, there's a contingent of them that don't like Nick Fuentes anymore, and it's evolving beyond him. So there is this shifting discourse and shifting culture within the right wing that perhaps is trending. I don't like the authoritarianism. It is trending more Christian, more traditionalist, and more authoritarianism. And, there's elements of that we can debate. But to say that everyone that shares this ideology or, gets a cultural diffuse of that isn't a psychopath. It's just what attracts them. For instance, Generation Z, it seems to be they're converting at higher rates to religion, to Christianity specifically. And it seems to be the case that the reason is why is because their upbringing and their development, time period was very much different from previous generations. They didn't grow up with tradition or a 2-parent household. A good chunk of them grew up in a single-parent household, and also constantly moving, not being able to afford a sustainable or stable lifestyle. And it seems to be that now this generation is trending towards more traditionalist lifestyle because they never saw that. So, I mean, with every generation and with every evolving political movement, there seems to be a reason and a cause for it. And I wouldn't necessarily pin it on people that are attracted to that, as attracted to psychopathic ideals, as much as it is we have to examine the ideals themselves. But, of course, there are going to be, 3-5% of people that will ruin it for everyone. So, yeah, it's
right.
I mean, like, correct.
Right.
It's correct. Yeah.
Right. And unlike, I know that, you're sort of like looking at the relationship that Jordan Peterson has with his daughter. But I mean, even like, his drug addiction or lack thereof, or, the influence of his daughter, or even his own traits that you've described here. You say, he's highly neurotic and high level disagreeable. Right. But isn't that really just an ad hominem? I mean, like, it's not, he can be the biggest drug addict in the world, but still be correct. in his analysis of people who have psychopathic traits and what they're attacking. I mean, like listen, I think that if somebody was a drug addict, that probably maybe we shouldn't listen to their opinions on other things as well, that there's a good reason to assume that someone who's a paranoid psychotic and likes to take mushrooms, no offense to my libertarian drug addict friends, you know who you are, but I do think that there is an attack, but it doesn't mean that they can't be absolutely correct about their analysis of mental health just because they have their own personal problems, right?
Yeah, my inclusion of his downfalls, you could say, is more of, it's not so much a critique, because as someone, I very much relate to Jordan Peterson because I also score high in disagreeableness and neuroticism. So it's not so much as a critique as it is understanding. Now, I never had a Xanax addiction, but I can understand that with people like him and I, we're also like academic, right? So we have, I suppose, a lot of relation there as well. But it's not so much a critique as much of an understanding. People like this, they tend to be, they're very difficult personalities is all I'm going to say. And you do undergo like a process of deconstruction, reconstruction. Jordan Peterson would appreciate what I'm saying. It's very like archetypical right now. But so essentially what I was more saying that this is an indication of a certain personality type that we need to be aware of. I like archetypes. I'm big in archetypes. So I was more drawing from my cult's whatever esoteric knowledge on that when I said, that in the Phoenix where you sort of have this rebirthing process. And so it wasn't so much a critique as it is knowledge of a tragic figure when I see one.
Okay.
You saw a person that spiked into relevancy to a downward spiral.
Yeah. Okay. Now let's move onto that one. And before we go, because I found that really interesting too, the last couple of sentences, this is what you wrote. You say that high-level, disagreeable, highly neurotic individuals, which you've classified yourself as, such as Peterson, will always crash and burn. It only gives him more chances to emulate the Phoenix journey, which I assure you he yearns. And you say, I would know. So do you also desire to burn into flames and be reborn? And if so, why? And what are you? This is very cryptic, Daniela. So decrypt it for us.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be difficult to summarize in a few minutes, but essentially, I suppose to boil it down, there are certain archetypes of people, there are certain types of people, and this could be measured by, for instance, where we score on the Big Five. That's Jordan loves the Big Five, by the way, so he would love this, which is neuroticism, disagreeableness, openness, extroversion, and there's a fifth one, conscientiousness. So there are ways to pinpoint certain people in society, and these are just innate traits that we're born with. Some of it's due to our development, our relationship with our parents, and so forth. And there's certain types of people out there, and this is why I don't like authoritarian conservatism, because they're very black and white on how people can be. Men are one way, women are another way. So people are different. They're more varied, and there are people out there with certain traits that exemplify certain traits that are more attracted to, I would say, a turbulent lifestyle that they may not even necessarily want, but subconsciously they're attracted to a more turbulent lifestyle, or one that requires development, more consciousness development, and that unfortunately takes like I mentioned, a deconstruction process and a construction process over and over and over again. And some people can withstand it. Some people just want a more stable, quiet lifestyle. So people are different. People desire different things, even subconsciously. And I would presume that Jordan Peterson, I'm not an expert in psychotherapy, but I understand that, he's a psychologist, so he can understand this better, that subconsciously just people desire certain things, even if they don't want it. They're attracted to even dark elements of the world, maybe some even villainous elements, even if they don't want to. So there's a way to explain this in greater detail, but as far as my understanding goes with psychotherapy and the Jungian archetypes and so forth, I just use my layman's knowledge to explain that. It summarize it in the Phoenix, right, which is a creature that dies and rebirths all the time. It's a resurrection process. And some people are just attracted to that because it furthers their development.
This is just fantastic. It just goes perfectly along with these conversations I've been having all week. I've been getting old school, talking about Plato, talking about Aristotle, because, I'm not religious, so I don't really have a Bible that I can turn to and suggest that, here are the answers that I need to calm my soul, my poor damned soul. So I love that you're calling it back to old school philosophies and the metaphors of the phoenix, which I also find fascinating. Actually, the first play that I wrote, which won this award in New York City, was called Phoenix Down, and it was about 9/11 and rebirth and the phoenix. So that's a very powerful metaphor for me, and I love seeing you invoke it. And I can't begin to speak to the journey that you're on, or like where this yearning to destroy and rebuild comes from. But I do see this theme quite often even in my own life. So I wonder, if I were to take this personality test, if I would be high level disagreeable and highly neurotic. But I know for sure if I'm not highly neurotic, I'm absolutely high level disagreeable. But
yeah.
Daniela, your show Culturama is where people can go to hear more of these kinds of very high-minded metaphors. Your show Culturama is where you're taking back tomorrow today. What are you talking about today that's going to take back tomorrow?
Oh, we have a lot to cover. Trump instituted more DEI policy measures, which I'm going to anti-DEI policy measures. I'm going to talk about. Obviously, I'm going to talk about the Jordan Peterson scandal, more about Nancy Mace. Quite the unique lady. And also I have an interview set up today with, he's known on Twitter as Disgraced Propagandist. He writes for the Carousel, his publication, pretty big. So I'm going to be asking about him, about the right wing and journalism. So that'll be really fun. So I highly recommend people show up today. It's going to be a great show. That's
great. Daniela Pensack tonight, rumble.com/Culturama. Can't wait to see. Great conversation, Daniela. You really gave me a lot to think about. So I look forward to hearing more from you tonight at 7 p.m. Central. Have a wonderful day.
Of course. Thank you, Austin.
Thank you very much. That's Daniela Pensack. You can also follow her at DC Pensack over on X. Have we had a good show today? Yeah, we unlocked the bonus content. We got to hang out with a lot of fun people like Joey Matto, Luke Sacker, Amy J. East. We get to hang out in person. Joni Rankin. Oh, yeah, we're hanging out. Are you going to be with us in D.C., Joni? What? No, you're going to miss out. Guess what? Because Justin now confirmed to be there. Me, Stephanie, Hazel, Justin, Angelo, Amy J. Ease. How many more awesome, fun people are going to be with us next week in Washington, D.C.? Well, I guess you'll have to buy a ticket and find out. We still got 2 left. If you want to join us in Washington, D.C., May 1st to the 3rd, maybe you live on the East Coast and you can make it out, go to our website, the Griff Shop, we call it, 4libertyshop.com. That's the number 4, libertyshop.com. While you're there, buy a couple of tickets and join us in Washington, D.C., and see us next week in Washington, D.C. with the AP DC Liberty Tour. And we'll see you guys right back again here tomorrow, the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network.
Take out a loan, you pay it back. Period. End of story. This isn't revolutionary, it's not controversial. It's how borrowing has worked since someone first asked, "Can I pay you back later?" But in modern America, personal responsibility is now seen as oppression, and expecting people to pay for their own decisions is somehow a political wedge issue. Enter the never-ending debate over student loans, and the misguided idea that forgiving billions in debt somehow makes it go away. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. That debt doesn't vanish, it gets transferred from the borrower to you. If you didn't take out a loan, tough. You're now expected to subsidize someone else's degree in political activism and performance art. If you already paid off your student loans? Well, sorry, sucker. Guess you did it the hard way. You should have waited for a politician to buy votes. Now the Department of Education is restarting collections on defaulted student loans, ending a years-long pause that started during the pandemic. Over 5 million borrowers are in default, and now the government's picking up where it left off, resuming wage garnishments, tax refund offsets, and reductions to Social Security benefits. Cue the outrage. How dare they? Scream the folks who've had 4 years to plan for this day. But let's be honest. What exactly did people think would happen? That the money owed would just disintegrate? That's not how math works. That's not how debt works. And it's certainly not how freedom works. Forgiving student loans doesn't make the cost disappear. It redistributes it. To the truck driver who never went to college, to the single mom who worked nights to pay off her loans the hard way, to the welder who took an apprenticeship instead of a women's studies degree. And what do they get in return? The privilege of paying for someone else's education so that person can tweet about capitalism being evil from a coffee shop with Wi-Fi and pronoun pins. Imagine trying this logic anywhere else in society. Imagine getting a mortgage, refusing to pay, and then demanding your neighbor cover your bill because housing is a human right. Or walking out of Target with a cart full of stuff and expecting the cashier to thank you for stimulating the economy. But when it comes to college, suddenly responsibility is oppression and consequences are violence. And look, I get it. Some people were sold a lie. They were told that if they went to college, any college for any degree, they'd be guaranteed a high-paying job and a life of comfort. That was nonsense, sold to a generation by bloated universities and enabled by a government that made it way too easy to borrow way too much. But guess what? Just because you were lied to doesn't mean someone else should foot the bill. This is the difference between charity and coercion. You want to donate to someone struggling with loans? Awesome. Voluntary generosity is beautiful. But forcing your neighbor to pay off someone else's debt is not generosity. It's theft with good PR. Colleges are the ones that ought to be held accountable. These institutions cranked tuition through the roof the moment they knew federal loans would keep flowing. They built fancy rec centers, added administrative bloat, and hired grievance consultants instead of actual professors. And when it all collapsed into a mountain of debt, they walked away untouched, still tenured, still tax-exempt, still smug. If anyone should be writing checks, it's them. You want reform? Start by making schools co-sign student loans. You'd see tuition drop overnight. Because if Harvard had to pay back half the debt for every unemployed sociology major it produced, I guarantee they'd start taking job outcomes seriously. You want to help future students? And the federal loan gravy train that props up these universities and traps young people in six-figure debt with no skills. Expand trade programs. Kill the stigma around blue-collar work. Show kids that a degree in engineering is not the same as a degree in theoretical puppetry. But let's drop the fantasy that we fix this problem by erasing it, because we don't. We just shift it, and we punish the people who played by the rules. If your plan to make higher education fair requires taking money from people who never benefited from it, it's not a solution. It's a shakedown wearing a cap and gown. Thanks for watching. If you believe in personal responsibility, honest economics, and calling out these sham solutions for what they are, check out forlibertyshop.com. That's where we sell the truth and the t-shirts that go with it. Support what you believe in. Shop forlibertyshop.com. See you next time.